we have a lot of huge problems. We have the nuclear problem in Korea. We have the nuclear problem in Iran. We have, of course, the whole array of problems, each of which, Afghanistan, and so forth. But then we have the financial issues. But they really are issues of reconstruction of a new world order. That's what this is about.
What is our common bond truly? Freedom!
I am an environmentalist. I know that our water and our food and our air have been poisoned by the very forces that wish to control the reaction in this Hegelian battle for the environment. They wish you to understand that there's a problem, and in many cases, the true problems have been created by the very people telling you to get angry about the problem. Problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem, chemtrails poisoning our atmosphere, our air, fluoride poisoning the water, GMO foods poisoning the food, food additives, chemicals. All of these things, the creators and controllers and owners of these companies that produce these products fund the very opposition to them so they can control that opposition. That is the essence of the Hegelian dialectic. And when it comes to Agenda 21, being green and wanting to be an environmentalist and having clean water, clean air, clean food, and enough resources, they will lead you to believe that the way we're living is unsustainable with air conditioning and heat, and the amount of miles you can drive, and the cost of gas will get out of control, so you won't be able to drive. You won't even be able to have a car. You won't be able to eat meat. There's too many meat eaters. And that's good, because all the vegetarians are on that route there. Oh yeah, we don't need to eat meat. UN wants you to eat bugs and horse meat. Where are we going? Straight into the New World Order.
Beginning in 1983, the United Nations asked the World Commission on Environment and Development, also called the Brundtland Commission, to propose long-term strategies for achieving sustainable development by the year 2000 and beyond. By 1987, in the name of preserving the food supply and clean water, sustainable development was introduced. Director General of the World Health Organization and Vice President of Socialist Internationale, Gro Harlem Brundtland, led a commission that released a report called Our Common Future. In it, they defined sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It sounds like something we can all support. After all, who doesn't want to preserve the land for future generations so they can have clean water and plant and reap their harvests? As sustainable development took shape, other issues within the UN progressed. In 1992, an Earth Summit was convened under the auspices of the UN to formulate policy for the world environmental movement. At the summit, they issued a report entitled Agenda 21. The number 21 stands for the 21st century. In his opening speech, the General Secretary of the summit, Maurice Strong, who is also a member of the Brundtland Commission, said,
Okay, so let me get this right. This rich, oligarchical, elitist asshole scum can have a 40,000 square foot house with air conditioning, heat, and everything else, and all the amenities, all the meat he wants. But we can't. That's what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I'm so angry. And if you're not angry, you're just asleep. And you're a sheep to the slaughter.
Current lifestyles and consumption patterns of the affluent middle class, involving high meat intake, use of fossil fuels, appliances, home and work air conditioning, and suburban housing, are not sustainable. It sounds as if sustainable development is taking on an agenda that can possibly curtail one's eating habits, the ability to drive using any type of vehicle, and even limiting one's ability to own a home in the suburbs. What are their true intentions? At the conclusion of the Earth Summit, in the euphoria of the moment, Agenda 21 was signed by 178 world leaders, including President George H.W. Bush. Since then, subsequent events have led American leaders, including Presidents Clinton and Obama, to sign further agreements and executive orders implementing Agenda 21.
You'll find that they've also asked for the right to imprison farmers who wouldn't keep books as prescribed by the federal government. The Secretary of Agriculture asked for the right to seize farms through condemnation and resell them to other individuals. And contained in that same program was a provision that would have allowed the federal government to remove 2 million farmers from the soil.
If you live in the heartland of America, you have to listen up. While the nation was distracted with the Anthony Weiner drama, President Obama signed an executive order that will seize greater power over food, fiber, and energy in our vast countryside areas. The president created the White House Rural Council to, quote, make sure we're working across government to strengthen rural communities and promote economic growth. Sounds great, but get this. The council involves a long list of the most powerful people in America. Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner, the Defense Secretary's on it, Attorney General Eric Holder, even the head of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano.
If that list doesn't scare you, you are seriously not paying attention at all. Go back to watching the baseball game or American Idol or whatever it is that has been distracting you from this truth.
Why would Homeland Security be involved in exerting power and influence over the heartland? Why would the Defense Department be involved in promoting economic growth? The plan calls for the federal government to control almost every aspect of rural America. It'll also, quote, identify and facilitate economic opportunities associated with energy development, outdoor recreation, and other conservation-related activities. Really? When did hunting and fishing become associated with conservation-related activities? And by the way, what does that mean? The aims of the White House Rural Development Plan sound eerily similar to a UN plan called Agenda 21, where a central planning agency would be responsible for oversight into all areas of our lives, a one world order. Sound familiar?
Environmental activist and attorney Daniel Sitars states, Agenda 21 proposes an array of actions which are intended to be implemented by every person on Earth. Effective execution of Agenda 21 will require a profound reorientation of all human society, unlike anything the world has ever experienced. A major shift in the priorities of both governments and individuals, and an unprecedented redeployment of human and financial resources. This kind of government control may sound inconceivable for a country like America, but in June of 1993, President Clinton issued Executive Order 12852 to create the President's Council on Sustainable Development. The purpose of the PCSD was to translate the recommendations set forth in Agenda 21 into public policy administered by the federal government. Now this begs the question, what UN mandates are being funneled through the federal government to our local communities? Property rights are not absolute and unchanging, but rather a complex, dynamic, and shifting relationship between two or more parties over space and time. Agenda 21's view toward private property can be traced back to the 1976 UN Conference on Human Settlement. In their Report of Habitat, the private ownership of land section reads, "Land because of its unique nature and the crucial role it plays in human settlements, cannot be treated as an ordinary asset, controlled by individuals and subject to the pressures and inefficiencies of the market. Private ownership is also a principal instrument of the accumulation and concentration of wealth, and therefore contributes to social injustice. If unchecked, it may become a major obstacle in the planning and implementation of development schemes. This is contrary to the views of George Washington, John Adams, and the other founders of the United States. Agenda 21's view on private property is comparable to that of the Soviet Union, where private ownership was replaced with collective ownership. Agrarian land reforms did away with the people's private ownership of farms. The farms were seized and converted into government-mandated collective farms. On these collective farms, the ruling Soviet government determined production quotas which are similar to what is being recommended by the PCSD to bring the rates of harvest into line. Since China is one of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, it has a great deal of influence on UN policy and how they view population control. China's one-child policy is now being considered as a viable solution towards sustainable development. The PCSD shows their support of this very idea in their 1998 publication, Sustainable America. We must move towards stabilization of the U.S. population and a reduced rate of population growth in the United States and the world. Sustainable America also promotes Agenda 21's view on education for sustainable development. We must expand the number of curricula, materials, and training opportunities that teach the principles of sustainable development. Generally speaking, it sounds as if the UN is altering children's school or college curriculum to improve the quality of education. On the surface, this sounds very positive. But is something missing here? What exactly are they changing? And how is this going to be implemented? Looking at the big picture, how is this directly affecting us and our individual freedom? It extends into many areas at state levels. The importance of state and federal training and education programs to generate educators, facilitators, and motivators who would be capable of going into individual homes and helping people develop their own personalized sustainability action plans. This sounds as if, for the good of our communities, we can look forward to trained government employees entering our homes. How will this directly violate your freedom? Agenda 21 is much more than private property, population control, and education. It affects nearly every aspect of your life. The following is a partial list of what Agenda 21 also promotes. Relocating people from rural areas to cities, higher gas prices, manipulating transportation patterns, forbidding human access to land, seizure of private property, restricting the amount of water use, additional taxing, restricting the amount of waste, forced community involvement, and the list goes on. In support of saving the Earth, affiliates of the UN have continued to expand into local communities through programs known as Local Agenda 21. The main organization that local governments join to be part of Local Agenda 21 is ICLEI. ICLEI stands for the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives. Founded in 1990, it was established when more than 200 local governments from 43 countries convened at its inaugural conference at the UN. ICLEI states that it provides technical consulting, training, and information services to build capacity, share knowledge, and support local government in the implementation of sustainable development at the local level. ICLEI has begun to entrench itself within the United States. As of today, the U.S. has by far the most local governments involved in ICLEI, exceeding 500.
The evidence is overwhelming as to this plot to take over the resources and the land of the world, basically. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a fact. I only ask you not to believe me, but not to just push it aside and say, forget it. Research this. Look into this. This is true. It's happening.